for a whole bunch of other things that I wasn't even aware of. But I got to know Carl when he was on the Historical District Overlay Board with myself and others, and it's just really a big loss to the city, and I wish I'd got to know him well 50 years ago, but I didn't. So I just mention that, maybe we could do, 30 seconds of silence and just give it a thought, okay? Thanks. Okay, thanks. I guess it's ironic that this was his room for quite a while. And, okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll start the meeting here at 6:32. And we'll do the call to order. Do the roll call, please.
In attendance tonight, we have Gail Ober, Gary Dion, Rich McNeil, Councilor Bruce Cheney, Mike Delavecchia, Chairman Charlie St. Clair, Amy Levisic, Planning Director Rob Mora, Assistant Planner Tyler Carmichael, and I'm Savannah Burnell, the Recording Secretary.
Thank you. And look for a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
So said.
So Mike made the motion, seconded. All in favor? Unless there's any discussion. All in favor, raise your hands. One. Okay, so that's the majority. We got a couple of abstentions.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so you weren't here.
Likewise. I understand that the vice chair did an excellent job, though, so.
I have no doubt he did a spectacular job, which is why I put his name in nomination.
Wonderful. So I'd like, with the indulgence of the board, I'd like to make a quick move to the agenda and move 7.5 up to the start of the meeting, because I know we have some people in the audience that wanted to hear specifically for that. So do I need a motion for that? I believe I do. I'd make a motion to move that. Amy seconded. Need a second, kids.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Anybody opposed?
Yeah.
One opposed, okay.
What if people are here for one of the hearings that is before
Thank
that?
you, Gail. We just did it, so yell at me later about it.
Don't need
Okay,
to now.
so we're gonna, this is a zoning ordinance amendment for residential accessory uses. Now, I just want to get up front here. We're going to end up, at the end of this, we're going to end up tabling this to the next meeting because, I'll let Rob explain better for that, so I don't mess it up.
So legal would like some further time to review, so they've asked us to continue it until next month. They have further time to review some new case law that's come down concerning short-term lodging.
Okay. That being said, I'm pretty sure there's some people in the audience that are here for that tonight. So we'll open that up for public input now, and we'll probably do that again next month too. So if there's anybody here that is here for that would like to discuss it now or get their opinion out, please step forward. Okay.
How's it going? Eric Hoffman, Ward 3. So I have a letter from a constituent. Marcia Hayward couldn't be here tonight, but she asked me to read this for her. Hold on, seems like I can actually read this. Good evening, I'm Marcia Hayward of 9 Wildwood Road. I'm a member of the Laconia Zoning Board, but my comments this evening are my own and not representative of the board. However, my experience on the board has influenced the remarks that I'm about to give. I wish to comment on the short-term lodging ordinance in general and then speak to the proposed amendment. The last 4 special exception requests for short-term lodging were Clearwater Place, Driftwood Drive, Shore Drive, and Lewis Street. Clearwater, Driftwood, and Shore are all waterfront properties and were advertised as such to attract renters. The Lewis Street property was advertised as water access, which was a stretch if you know the location of the residence. But again, the point is to attract rentals. 3 of the 4 applicants are from out of town and purchased the property as an investment. All of the applicants were very clear that their need for the special exception was to help pay for their investment. The granting of their requests makes the property a commercial use in a residential zone. A commercial use, in my opinion, that benefits the property owner and not the city, which I will explain later in my remarks. With each request comes opposition from neighbors, either in person or written. The basic argument routinely presented was the neighbors want to maintain the character of their neighborhoods, not turn it into a commercial zone, which requires them to police adherence to the ordinance. Currently, the ordinance for short-term owner-occupied lodging requires a maximum of 15 rentals or a maximum of 120 rental days. The owner must reside at the property for a minimum of 150 days. Neighbors are not eager to track these requirements. It is my understanding that the rationale for creating the short-term rental ordinance was to maintain the housing stock because many homes were being purchased by out-of-towners for second homes, thus removing them from the market for local mid-income buyers. The master plan cites repeatedly the need for middle-income and year-round housing. I do not understand how the short-term rental ordinance advances the goals of the master plan. Homes are still being purchased by out-of-towners for the purposes of investment. By allowing residential homes to be turned into a commercial venture, I believe even further reduces the housing stock. Also, by requiring a maximum of 100 days for rental, 150 days for owner occupancy leaves 95 days for long-term rental. 95 days does not advance the need for year-round housing. With regard to the proposed amendment, I mentioned that neighbors have no desire to monitor the requirements of a short-term rental. The amendment would provide that monitoring. However, it will require honesty on the part of the applicant. The city will have no way of validating the information provided is accurate. Just like the city has no way of validating the number of short-term rentals that are occurring. The proposed amendment does not go far enough. It needs to address compliance issues, and it needs language to provide guidance to make a good case to deny applications where appropriate. Examples, if it's going to be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood, if it's going to cause a reduction in housing stock, or if it's going to diminish year-round housing availability. Rather than tack on a slight change to the ordinance, I would like to see the ordinance totally redesigned. Thanks.
Thank you. If you could, if you get a copy of that to the, if it hasn't been done, to the department, and perhaps they can get that, a copy of that to all the board members, okay?
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw somebody else wanted to come up.
Sure. Hi, I'm John Hildreth. I'm in Ward 1. And I also would like to address this, the regulation and the way it's laid out. In my opinion, I think there is a dramatic flaw in the way it was drafted, in that if a property had been used in this manner for a period of 5 years prior to the ordinance, in this manner, then it would be grandfathered. So if a property owner rented his property for a number of weeks to pay his taxes, definitely someone who lives there full-time and just rents it for a few weeks, that was grandfathered in because it was, if it had been used in this manner in the past. If the property had been used as an owner-operated or a resident using it for a few weeks to pay his taxes, that's one manner to use it. But unfortunately, the zoning board here determined that because this had happened and then the property was sold to someone from out of state who uses it strictly for short-term lodging, that's a completely different use in my opinion, and I think it's really not in the manner of the way that this grandfather was put in place. In other words, because a property was used in this manner, it had been rented short-term, then that property in a residential zone becomes a commercial property and basically a hotel in your neighborhood.
So are you saying that if the property is sold, it's a brand-new owner, that's when you would think that the grandfather clause shouldn't pass over? Is that what I understood?
Well, I think that it was, I don't think the spirit of the regulation was that from now until eternity, that should be a commercial property in a residential zone.
Okay, I see Rob looks like he wants to say something. Go ahead, Gail.
I just want to say that I sat on the zoning board for Clearwater property that John was heavily involved in. Unfortunately, that's what the law read. We didn't pass the law at the zoning board. It wasn't our interpretation. It was the city council who passed that law. So I'm not trying to absolve myself of any
Right.
of any responsibility. I voted for the short-term ordinance because that was what the law said. Had we proceeded in a different direction, we would not have prevailed in Supreme Court. So just take that off the table now. I don't see any more grandfathering in this proposed ordinance, though.
If you, give me a moment. So, before, when the city originally adopted short-term lodging, the city created a special exception
Yes, we did.
just for short-term lodging, and that's where that 5-year came from.
Yes, it
If
did.
you had been doing this for 5 years, you met the requirement of that special exception. In this update, we have completely rewritten the ordinance.
Okay,
And we have removed that, and we have put it back to the standard criteria for every other special exception to make sure that it's in line with the neighborhood, it's in line with the master plan, and it's not a burden to any city services. So that gives the zoning board more opportunity to make sure that it really is in line with the neighborhood, and if it's not, they can actually say no, and not be bound by saying, oh, it's been done there for 5 years, we have to say
right.
yes.
And can I have a follow-up to that then? So what you're saying is what I'm reading here, because I didn't see that in here. So this new ordinance would not have any grandfathering clause.
So in this ordinance.
So in
the
other words,
only
if
people that would
somebody,
be-
XYZ property was doing this already doing this in a neighborhood, okay, and it, for however many years, because the grandfather clause is read within 5 years, not for 5 years, and that was another wording phrase in the law that I didn't write.
Correct. So right
So-
now, if you, let me add for a second.
Well, no, I want to know, so there's no grandfathering, there is grandfathering, or how are you going to treat existing short-term rental permits in residential zones?
So you have to have a short-term lodging permit now.
Now, okay?
If you don't have one now and we change the ordinance and you didn't have one,
Then you're
then
out.
you're out of luck.
You're out, okay.
If you have but the problem is we have an ordinance now. So if somebody got a special exception from the zoning board and they've been doing it now, they would, and we adopted a new ordinance, now they would be considered pre-existing non-conforming. So you would have to allow them to continue until they disbanded the use for at least, is it 12 months or 24 months in the zoning ordinance?
12 months.
I think it's
12 months?
12 months for the
Okay,
use.
and does that run with the property or with the owner? Because the previous law, it
So-
ran with the property and it had very little to do with
So
who owned
the
it.
use does run with the property,
Yes, okay,
but the permit, it runs with the owner. So if you have a permit and you sell your house, the new owner has to get a new permit. If they don't get a new permit and their time starts ticking, that they've not pursued that use. So after that 12-month time period, they would have abandoned it without renewing a
and they would
permit.
have to go through
They
the
would have to go
entire process
back
of going to
through.
the zoning board again and trying to reapply and getting a special exception, which is the way, okay, that clears up a lot. Thanks, Rob.
Go ahead, Counselor.
A couple things. I notice in D1, it says the use is limited to a single residential dwelling unit that is the property of the owner's primary residence.
Yes.
And then we talk about, I think, 120 days, which I think you may recall, I've argued in the past should be more, like 200 or 200 and some odd days. Whether we change that or not, it still has to be, it can't be the guy from out of town that buys it for the single purpose of renting it out.
Moving forward.
Right,
Correct.
moving forward.
So we did have a typo in this first one. So the board has distributed it as an updated one. If you look on your distributed ordinance update under D1, it should have the language, the use is, huh?
He just read that
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, correct. And our zoning ordinance, when we did our last update for accessory dwelling units, we added the definition of primary residence.
have that
Right.
here.
And that is,
I can read it.
okay.
The place of abode or domicile that is designated by a person as their principal place of physical presence to the exclusion of all others for at least 200 days annually for the purposes of this chapter. Such designation can be determined by providing the planning department with 2 or more of the following documents: valid New Hampshire driver's license, valid New Hampshire identification card, a valid U.S. passport, a valid vehicle registration, or proof of payment for utilities at the property for which primary residency is being claimed. And so that's how you determine prize
John,
value.
I think what that says is that moving it to 200 days, they can't be using it year-round. They have to be here more than half of the year.
But in this particular case, that
In
property
the
is,
existing ones, but I would tell you, we could write whatever you want. The court would say, now, wait a minute. You can't write laws that are retroactive when it comes to this sort of stuff. So if you know of one that's pre-existing, I'm afraid, I do think that if they sell it to someone else, that someone else begins a new process. Am I correct?
You're correct.
They begin a new permitting process, but they don't have to go through the zoning board to get the
Right,
short,
if they
to
had-
get
if
the
they-
special exception.
Correct. If they needed a special exception and they already had that, all they would need to do is come back in for a permit renewal.
But they'd have to meet the criteria for
But they
that
have to
permit.
meet the permit criteria for that.
but the permit criteria would then include the 200 days residency.
Yeah, in the new ordinance.
Someone new would have to meet the new ordinance.
So if that property was purchased,
The new owner would have to come in and meet the new ordinance requirement.
at least that's something.
Thank you very much, John, for coming forward. Remember, we're going to be talking about this next month, too, so have another bite at it then. Anybody else? Well, thank you all very much. So I guess we need a motion to table this now, is that correct? We wanted to move it to next month?
Yes, if the board would be so inclined to continue it.
So moved.
Second. Who are you again? All right, it's been moved. Is any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hands, please. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, back on the agenda here now. So 6.1, this is a zoning ordinance amendment for 235-15 official zoning map. This is going to alter the boundaries of the residential apartment district to include parcel 394-336-15 in accordance with the city's master plan. We need to accept that?
No, it's been continued since last month, so
Okay.
the board open it up for public hearing again or not.
This still says 120 days, the newest version.
Oh, that's for the limit of days that they can rent it.
Okay, so do we need to open, you want to open this up to public comment, you said? Sure. Okay, we'll open it up at, I forgot to close the other one, but the other one's closed. So we'll open this one up at 6:48. Is there anybody who would like to comment on this zoning ordinance amendment? Forgive me. Okay, being there's nobody here, for this, we'll close the public hearing at 6:49. So I will let somebody take this. I was not here last month, so.
So,
go ahead, Bob.
it was continued last month, per request of one of the members. The property actually was purchased, and the applicant, or the property owner went before the zoning board last month for a variance to put 21 residential units there and for the use of multifamily. The zoning board approved both variances unanimously, and the zoning board additionally said that if it was their preference that the lot be redistricted to RA to be more in line with the use. And I explained to them that it had been at the planning board last month, and it was tabled and was going to be, there was another public hearing scheduled for tonight, which they were all in favor of.
This is the property, in case somebody's not aware, this is the old Bean Conference Center
Correct.
up off North Main Street in Blueberry Lane.
So the use is already, for the conference center, is already a non-conforming use with the residential single-family zoning district, which the parcel is in. This would make, even under RA, it would still be a non-conforming use. But changing the residential, single-family district to residential apartment would be more in line with Blueberry Lane as the character of the neighborhood, and it's also in line with our
Our
master plan. And what's those key words that you love using on you, Tyler?
So the master plan currently identifies a pro-population growth land use strategy with focus on mid-market residential housing. By expanding this RA district to this parcel, the city will provide developers with an opportunity to implement the city's current land use strategy. I've provided that in the staff report as well. I go into greater detail, but essentially the master plan does acknowledge that the city is expanding farther northward, and so this is in line with our master plan of rezoning that particular lot.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I look for a motion.
We'll make a motion that we rezone, do you need me to, what is it? Rezone parcel 394-336-15 on Blueberry Lane from, was it commercial now?
RS
RS?
to RA.
From RS residential single to residential apartment?
Yep. And refer it to city council for adoption.
And, okay, and refer that to the city council for adoption.
For a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Amy. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Opposed?
I abstain, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have 1 abstention and 2, 4, 5 in favor. So it passes. Thank you very much. We're moving on now to 7.1, PB 2025-017. That's 208 Lakeside Avenue. Applicant is proposing to add 5 self-contained RV sites to the existing campground. I'll look for a motion to accept this.
So moved.
Okay, second it?
Second.
Okay, so seconded by Gary and motion made by Amy. Okay. I guess we'll just open up a public hearing on this. Go ahead.
vote?
You need a vote on that.
I thought we did vote.
No, motion was
All in
made.
favor to accept it? I could have sworn they did. Yeah, okay.
We did that.
Counselor Cheney?
That did.
Okay, so it's unanimous, thank you. My mind is just racing ahead.
It's an exciting night.
I feel the pressure of the audience, keep it moving. So we'll open this up. Well, first of all, is the applicant here? Come on up, please.
Good evening. Tom Brown from the New Hampshire Veterans Association. So at the last TRC meeting, everything went smoothly. There was one fly in the ointment, and Rob requested that we have a surveyor come in to survey that back corner, so it would give the proper setbacks. And so today I met with Sarah and Frank from Du Bois and King, and that's gonna happen. And the understanding was that they would give us an occupancy permit upon receipt of the surveyor's map. So, and I'm okay with that, if that's, works for you guys. The only, I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page. We're just gonna survey that back corner where we're putting the 5 new lots, not the whole 9-acre parcel, if that's okay with you, because I don't think it's necessary to survey the whole 9 acres. Expense we don't need.
Yep.
Okay? So,
Staff is good with that.
and also the length of the permit would be how long? I know the last one was 1 year. We never even got our wheels turning before that happened, but,
So on our staff report, I think we have it for 5 years.
okay, that's excellent. We won't need that long, but that's great. I figure in a
Never
couple
know.
of years. You never know, right.
Never know.
Very good point, Charlie.
Dan, the agent here, Dan,
Dan, he's the quartermaster.
would you inform the quartermaster that if I didn't know better, I would have thought I filled this out?
Oh, really?
Because I love the one-word answers. 'cause that's what I do. Please pass that on.
I will, he'll get a kick out of that.
Okay, we'll open this up to, unless you have, anybody here have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
We'll open this up now to public comment at 6:56. Is there anybody here in the audience that would like to comment on this application for Lakeside Avenue? I'm so hurt, okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment at 6:57. Okay. Now we'll hear from staff.
All right, so first up, we have the findings of fact. The application and subdivision plans are complete and consistent with the state and city land use regulations. The application and site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its October 15th, 2024 meeting. The applicant agreed to revise its site plans and attend another TRC meeting for further review. The revised site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its January 21st, 2025 meeting. The applicant agreed to make further revisions to its site plans and attend another TRC meeting for further review. And finally, the revised site plans were reviewed by the Technical Committee at its March 18th, 2025 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated in the recommended conditions of approval. Those recommended conditions are: for pre-construction requirement, all conditions in this section must be completed at least 2 weeks prior to commencing any work on site. Plans must be revised and submitted to the planning department to include the following: survey of the property from a registered land surveyor engineer, all boundaries of the property, map, block, lot, and unit numbers for the subject and abutting parcels, boundaries of Veterans Avenue, including the Class 6 portion, delineation of the existing and proposed campsites and their square footage, all setbacks for the property. For permits and approvals, the applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by federal, state, and municipal boards or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of the final plans in Mylar. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the planning department. 4 final plan sets must be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the planning department. For construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met during the construction of the project. All specifications for municipal water service as required by the water department apply to all construction. A testable backflow device must be installed at a location accessible to and approved by the water department. This device must be tested in accordance with the water department's policies and procedures. All iron service lines must be replaced in accordance with the water department's regulations and procedures. The applicant must work with the water department to identify all active and inactive iron service lines. The water department must inspect all work on water lines. Each campsite must be delineated and identified with proper signage as approved by Laconia Planning Department. The required number of parking spaces must be delineated by paint, sign, or other method as approved by Laconia Planning Department. For post-construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy. Impact fees in the amount of $1.49 per square foot of each new campsite must be paid to the planning department. In accordance with RSA 674-39, the applicant is exempt from any changes to impact fee rates for 5 years from the approval date. Should the project not be completed during the exemption period, the applicant must pay any and all increases to impact fees regardless of investment status. And finally, for the completion date, the project and all associated conditions must be completed by no later than April 1st, 2030. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension application filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval will be null and void.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Rob, anything from you?
No, Tyler summed it up really well. We've been we've been working with the applicant for a few months now, trying to get them on the best path forward. This was a similar project from them was submitted back in 2023 when Kathy was here. We've really tried to help them clean up everything and help them move it forward. And I think with this project and our conditions that we've outlined, we're really going to help them make the best of their project.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one little quick question.
Go
So
ahead,
the water
Gail.
department will inform you guys when those conditions are met?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I would hope so.
Well, I
Well,
don't know how they.
We have pre-construction meetings and we have lots of
Oh,
meetings
you do? Okay, all right.
with the departments to make sure that everybody's in compliance with all of our approvals.
Okay.
They
It
bet-
just runs downhill, water runs downhill, the beach is there. I just want to make sure that that stuff is in place before they expand it. You know, there's checks and balances, Mr.
Sure, sure. Good question. Anybody else? I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve application PB 2025-017 for 208 Lakeside Ave with the conditions of approval as stated in the staff report.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, look for a vote. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, and we'll see you around up there. See you in traffic.
Thank you all for your help in all this.
You're very welcome.
It's been great working with you.
Same.
Okay, next we have 7.11. What are we doing? Was there some?
There's a light out. I'm just checking it out.
Oh, okay. This is 7.11. This is PB 2025-041, 427 Wares Boulevard. Applicant is proposing a condominium conversion of the existing single-family home in 4 cottages. Look for an acceptance.
So moved.
Moved by Gary, second.
Second.
By Rich, all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Would the applicant please come on up? Introduce yourself. Thank you.
I'm Cindy Terrio with Wilcox and Barton. This is Ryan Foley. He's the owner. I do have an electronic copy of the plan. If that would be helpful, I can pull that up.
Do we?
Nothing yet. So you don't have any hard copies? Oh, on this, but I meant for the audience there, just that right there, okay.
I have like extras if people want to look at hard
Oh, okay.
copies.
You got it.
There it is.
Yeah, it's up now.
There it is.
Okay. It's all yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Is this, all right. The project is existing as a single-family home and cottages under one ownership, and the proposal is to make it a condominium subdivision. So there would be 6 new owners for the property. Essentially, the larger building will be split into 2 units, and then each of the cottages will be its own unit. Mostly interior renovations. Exterior renovations include basically repaving the existing driveway, and then sewer has requested some updates to the sewer. We're working with DPW to meet their requirements. There's snow storage on the property. If there's any additional snow storage needed, they'll truck it off-site. Trash removal, there'll be a dumpster on site for private pickup. And that was it. We have a density variance that's required because the property is only 0.85 acres on the uphill side and 0.1 acre on the lower side, and you need 1 acre total to have 6 units. So we're requesting a variance. We're in front of the ZBA April 21st for that. We've read through the staff report and have no objections. I can go through that point by point if you want, or answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody on the board have any questions?
The only question I have is is there a requirement that the dumpster is screened?
I believe we do have that.
Yes,
Is it in there? Okay, all right.
yes.
I didn't see it, so that's okay, great, thanks.
Why do we have to have dumpsters? Why can't you just use public pickup?
They
We
said
have
they were
that in
gonna
there.
have a dumpster.
We give them the option to just have
You
private.
did give them the option.
Yes, yep. So that
So
way
my
if,
question goes again, is that something you could possibly do both of, or just?
It's my understanding that for public pickup, you can only have 4 bins, and since there's proposed to be 6 units, the private made more sense. I don't,
So Counselor, it's divided into 4 separate units?
You talking to me?
Yeah, I am talking to you. So they don't get,
Yeah, 2 point.
and I know you love answering for Public Works, but they don't get immediately,
They get 4 garbage and 4,
so it's not 2 per unit?
no.
Of course not.
And-
All right.
And just so you know, too, the reason why we don't stipulate that it has to be a dumpster, we just say it has to be private trash, is because we've experienced with other properties in the past. They were going to get a dumpster, but then the private trash company said, well, actually, it makes more sense if you just do the 6 or whatever trash cans instead. So we leave that up to them to work out with their private trash
Because you
service.
could still do the 4, I guess.
But they could also do
Sure.
private trash cans as opposed to doing a dumpster. So they've really got like 3 options they could go with.
I know what you could do. You could do recycling. You could have the recycling bins out there and use your dumpsters for trash, but also encourage the units to recycle.
Well, I would think the condominium owners would get a dump sticker anyway.
Say that again?
The condominium owners would get a dump sticker.
For recycling?
Well, you can go to the dump. I mean, you can always just take
As
your
I
little
said,
bag
you
of
could,
trash and go to the dump.
you can use the bins, though. They do have them. I, dream on there, but, okay. Any other questions for the,
Just didn't see the screening part, that was a.
okay. Okay, thank you. We'll open up the public comment now. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to, we're going to open this up at 7:07, by the way.
I just met my neighbor. Bill McCarthy, I'm 445 Weirs Boulevard, I'm right next door. I don't oppose the applicant at all. I just had a couple questions. Is there any parking on Weirs Boulevard?
No.
On the street
street?
itself? No.
Okay, that would be my only concern if there was an overflow of cars. It's hard enough to get out of my driveway, and if there was one on each side of my driveway, I couldn't see, so that answered that
That would be
question.
a very big mistake, to
Yeah.
park on Weirs Boulevard.
No, I know.
I think even some of the tow signs are still up there. They were put up years ago. Might be 1 or 2 of those up there.
Well, I guess I can't talk about sidewalks right now, though, right?
Well, I don't know if it pertains to this unit,
No,
but,
no, that's,
I'd be happy to entertain that perhaps someday.
Someday,
When we
yes.
have it on
Yeah.
our agenda, sidewalks.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out for
Okay,
that.
I will. One concern I did have, you just brought it up, was the dumpster. The location of where the dumpster's gonna be is more towards my property. And I don't know what time pickups, how often it would be emptied, what times in the morning.
Will that dumpster be covered by fence? Will that be surrounded? Is
It'll be
that-
screened, yep.
So it's going to be screened. So hopefully you won't notice that if it gets too full.
Yeah, but if they come at 6 in the morning, he's gotta listen to the truck.
I don't know that, well, I guess some of them do come that early.
Pretty early.
I didn't know if they consider, I got to see the plans on my phone. I didn't see them large, but if they consider.
Well, I would hope if you have a problem with that you can reach out to your new neighbors, who undoubtedly you'll have a phone number to call.
Yeah.
And they're shaking their heads to affirm that. So,
Are you
Gail?
planning?
so,
Want to
sir,
hand that to him?
so that'll be,
Here's an
you
extra.
can, that should be not a problem.
Yeah.
If it is, you can always come right back to the office downstairs. Any other questions from anybody else?
Bill, is your property north or south of the subject property?
So if I'm standing on Weirs looking, I'm to the left of them.
North, south.
Okay.
I just didn't know if they considered putting the visitor parking right there, and then maybe the dumpster where the visitor parking was gonna go.
Well, I don't know of any issues, but again, you can, it sounds like you've got a good chain of communication here. So hopefully, we'll take advantage
No,
of
they've
that.
done a great job with it looks great. I'm glad I came tonight to get to say hello, and,
Okay,
but, okay,
all right, thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm losing my voice. Anybody else like to get up and comment on this? Okay, seeing nobody else, we'll close the public comment at 7:10. Yeah, look for a staff report?
Certainly. So first off, for the findings of fact, the application and subdivision plans are complete in accordance with state and city land use regulations. The application and site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its February 18th, 2025 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated in the recommended conditions of approval, which are: first and foremost, we have the pre-construction requirements. All conditions in this section must be completed at least 2 weeks prior to commencing any work on site. A variance must be obtained from the Zoning Board of Adjustment to allow for 6 units of density where only 5 are permitted. Should a variance not be obtained, all plans, documents, and Mylars must be revised to account for 5 dwelling units. Final condominium documents must be submitted to the Planning Department for review and approval. These documents must be recorded at the Belknap County Register of Deeds at the applicant's expense. Floor plan for each unit must be provided to the Planning and Assessing Departments. The addresses for all units must be updated by the Department of Public Works to ensure compliance with RSA 231:133 and 133-A. A 911 addressing plan must be submitted to the Planning Department for review and approval. The applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by federal, state, and municipal boards or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of the final plans in Mylar. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the Planning Department. 4 final plan sets and a Mylar plan must be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the Planning Department. The Mylar plan and notice of action must be recorded at the Belknap County Register of Deeds at the applicant's expense. For construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met during the construction of the project. The applicant must pay any and all fees and adhere to all requirements of the Water Department should the property ever connect to city water. The applicant must adhere to all specifications as required by the Laconia Fire Department. The sewer services must be cleaned and inspected via CCTV. A certified inspection report must be submitted to the Department of Public Works for review and approval. The layout of the sewer services and cleanouts must be documented in accordance with DPW standards. Any and all deficiencies in the sewer system must be rectified in accordance with DPW standards. Private trash service will be required if more than 4 trash cans or a dumpster are used. If a dumpster is used, it must be screened from view. Snow storage and/or removal must be provided by the owner so drainage structures can function properly and the required parking spaces can be utilized. The required number of parking spaces must be delineated by paint, sign, or other method as approved by the Laconia Planning Department. Proposed construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy. Impact fees in the amount of $3,481.37 per dwelling unit must be paid to the Planning Department in accordance with RSA 674-39. The applicant is exempt from any changes to impact fee rates for 5 years from the approval date. Should the project not be completed during the exemption period, the applicant must pay any and all increases to impact fees regardless of vestment status. An as-built design, application, and review fee for each dwelling unit must be submitted to the Planning Department for review and approval prior to the issuance of each certificate of occupancy. And finally, for the completion date, the project and all associated conditions must be completed by no later than April 1st, 2030. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension application filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval will be null and void.
Thank you, Tyler.
Anytime.
I can see that, all right. Good job. Any more questions? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's, every time we lose rental cottages to condominium, tourism suffers. The Proctors fell, Lazy E Hotel has fallen, others along that stretch. And I can't stop these people from building what they want, but it's just something to think about.
Oh, I think about it all the time. I have a question, if one of you can come back up. It's quick questions, a couple of them. Are these cottages year-round now?
They are, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and so all we're doing is condominium, and would they be prevented from, if somebody was said, I'm gonna be gone for the summer, could they sublease it to somebody?
They certainly could, yes. I believe the zoning is CR.
Yep.
Okay.
And just commenting on the development in general, when we obtained the property, it was in really rough shape. To the point where we pulled walls out, like hundreds of rats are falling out of the walls. It was really bad. So
Rats?
Rats, mice.
Not in Laconia, they might have been field mice.
Like big
Rats
mice.
on a stick.
Big
Is that gonna be in your condo bylaws?
Yeah,
You're
no.
gonna, are you gonna submit condo bylaws to the planning department?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you said, is it going to be in the bylaws, what specifically, the rental?
Well, yeah, usually a condominium document will set out whether short-term rentals are allowed or not allowed within the development. And
But
we
that-
just need a copy of it on file. Whatever you choose to do is up to you.
Yeah.
We have no control over that.
We have it written that it would be allowed unless there's a unanimous vote by all owners that it's removed or modified.
Okay, fair enough. And I'll leave you with one more comment. please use recycling bins. The city does provide those, so get your unit people up there on board with that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Will
We
do.
all appreciate that.
Thank you.
One thing I would ask, and this, it goes to what we discussed earlier that isn't really there yet, but it will be. In your condominium documents, if you guys don't vote against it, could you request that any short-term rental permits would have to be in compliance with the planning department in terms of applications and payment of fees?
Yes.
Or it's not gonna be allowed within the condominium development? If you could include a clause like that, that would go a long way towards us achieving a little bit of our goal
Yeah,
of trying to get these things on the book.
we put in a clause, I believe, that states that we need to be in compliance with all city and local ordinances and laws. So that, I believe that covers it. If there's commentary after the review period, we're happy to make modifications through our attorneys.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. and
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your
Okay, well, I'll take a motion on this
My machine.
application. Somebody?
I'll make a motion. We accepted it, right, Mr. Chair?
Pardon me?
We already accepted it, right?
Yes. we
Okay,
did.
I move to approve application PB 2025-041 for 427 Weirs Boulevard with the conditions of approval as presented in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Rich, okay. Any more discussion? That's a valid question if it was accepted, though, with my record, thank you. All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Okay, no opposition, one abstention, 2, 4, 5 in favor. It passes. Thank you very much. Good luck. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to 7.3, PB 2025-046, 623 Union Avenue. The applicant is proposing to add 10 automotive service bays to the existing building. Is there anybody here from, oh, there you are, right there. Now we got a chart. Now we got a big one. No, I like it, believe me.
Wait a minute. Now I can't go back. Trying to go back.
First of all, I need a motion to accept the application.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Gary?
Second.
Want a second? Oh, Amy saved you.
got you, Gary.
It's been seconded.
I thought you said Amy.
I see. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor to accept the application, raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you very much.
Ready for me?
I'm Sarah Wordy from Du Bois and King, here representing Irwin Chevrolet. I'll tell you a little bit about our project. So you're probably familiar with the building. It was formerly Canton Chevrolet at 623 Union Ave. The existing site, I think I talk loud enough that you'll be able to hear me. I'll try to project pretty good so that I can point things out. So just to orient yourself, this is Union Ave. Mechanic Street is back here. The storefront faces along Union Ave. This project, or the owners, have acquired a couple different lots around it, so their property, not part of this lot, but the Chevrolet display area extends all the way to the corner on this lot here. But we're specifically talking about the lot that houses their dealership. With an existing automotive bay area, it has 10 bays currently. And then also part of the parcel is a standalone building to the rear, accessed off of Mechanic Street, that houses 4 additional, I'm pretty sure it's 4 additional service bays and a single bay car wash. So what they are proposing is an addition off of the Mechanic Street side of the building to add 10 additional service bays. And we have submitted a memo documenting that we're meeting the parking requirements and also a waiver request asking for a waiver from a stormwater analysis because where the new building will be going is currently paved. So not only is there no change in impervious area, but all of the stormwater is also being directed to the same place it goes now. For the construction, we will be relocating an existing drainage pipe around the addition. There's an existing drain line that is kind of interesting. This pipe is completely flat. There's no slope on it from what our surveyors found in the inverts. So we're gonna be trying to improve upon that and add some pitch to the pipe as we direct it around the building. But currently, the drainage system flows to the municipal system that's in Union Ave, and it will continue to do the same. So with no change in impervious area, we're not generating any additional runoff, and we're not sending it anywhere differently. One could argue that the runoff will actually be cleaner because it's a roof versus pavement. Also for the construction, there will be a relocation of a fire suppression line. There's a 6-inch fire suppression line that comes out of the compressor room. So we've talked to the water department, and it will be relocated around the addition and connect back into the connection on Mechanic Street. Additionally, there's overhead electric that runs from a pole on Mechanic Street that will now be underground electric coordinated with Eversource. They're currently proposing 4-inch conduit runs, Schedule 80 PVC. There are no new like bathroom facilities proposed. However, there is a trench drain proposed. The flows are pretty minimal, but we are proposing a connection to an oil water separator and then to the drainage system, which is what they do for their current automotive area. They have a trench drain in their existing shop that goes to an oil water separator and then to the drainage system. So we're mimicking that in the back. Initially, we had looked into seeing if they could be tied together, but because one pitches towards Union Ave, they couldn't make the elevations work. I believe we're providing more handicapped parking to meet the ADA standards.
These are service bays, right?
They are, yes. What other questions can I answer?
Where's the car wash going to?
The car wash is existing. There's no new car wash. This building right here has a few automotive bays and a single car wash. Okay. No changes are proposed to that building or the parking that's behind it.
So they just really want to add 10 more techs. So they need 10 more lifts. Okay.
And technically, it's 9 service bays and an alignment rack.
Okay, well.
We called it 10.
Any other questions? Anybody? Now, well, we'll get to that waiver after, so, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll open up a public comment or public hearing at 7:24 on this application. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this? I'm gonna pay people to come up here and do that, I think.
How much?
Right.
I'll get up there.
I was just gonna say, out of your range.
Give them the same planning
That's
board
a great
salary.
shot of the screen right now, look at.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Shows
There are
everybody
people here,
rushing
but-
to get up here.
I know. All right, well, seeing nobody, we'll close the public comment at 7:24, and I'll open it up to the staff.
So, first off, for findings of fact, the application is
Wait,
something.
let me interrupt you.
Yeah,
Waiver?
The waiver.
yes.
Waiver.
So I apologize. Usually we, and that was an oversight on
Yeah,
our
that was
part.
our bad.
That's a planning department mistake. Usually we put that first on there, and we forgot to put that on there. So we'll need a vote on the waiver.
All right, so the request they're making is to not have to do a stormwater
A stormwater analysis.
analysis.
Correct.
It's already impervious, that's there.
I
Not
agree with her,
expanding it, so.
I agree with her comments on that.
And it is fairly accurate. I mean, the water technically should be cleaner as it's roof water as opposed to water that's on the asphalt that's been treated and dripped on and contaminated, so.
And DPW had no concerns with that, so.
Well, that's encouraging, okay. Does anybody else have any questions about this waiver request?
No,
I'll
I had a
look-
question on the oil water separator, but I guess there is an existing one in the building.
Yes.
Existing building, so, okay.
So would that make it 2 oil water separators for this property?
Okay, I'll look for a motion on the waiver exemption, waiver to exempt
I'll
that.
make a motion that we waive the stormwater runoff evaluation for planning board application 2025-046, 623 Union Avenue, at the recommendation of the planning department and Public Works, you say is on board with that, and Public Works.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, that's taken care of. All right, now we'll
right.
go to you, Tyler.
Findings of fact. So the application subdivisions are complete and consistent with state and land use regulations. The application site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its March 18th, 2025 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated in the recommended conditions of approval, which are for pre-construction requirements. All conditions in this section must be completed at least 2 weeks prior to commencing any work on site. Plans must be revised and submitted to the planning department to include the following. All details shall note that water service pipes must have a minimum 6 feet of cover. The applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by federal, state, and municipal boards or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of the final plans in Mylar. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the planning department. 4 final plan sets must be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the planning department. For construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met during the construction of the project. The applicant must pay any and all fees, adhere to all requirements of the water department should the property,
I think
no, that one, sorry, was leftover. We're gonna scratch that one. Ignore that condition. We're gonna move on to 2.2. No bells and or joints shall be located under the foundation except for an elbow turning water service pipes upward. For water insulation, all water service pipes must be insulated at the drain crossing. For water inspections, the water department must inspect all work on all water lines. The applicant must adhere to all specifications as required by the Laconia Fire Department. Fire alarm system must be installed in accordance with current New Hampshire State Fire Code and city ordinances. The new addition must not impact access by the fire department, access requirements in accordance with NFPA 1. The new compressor/oil storage room must meet the separation requirements in NFPA 101/NFPA 30 and the storage requirements in NFPA 30. Snow storage and or removal must be provided by the owner so drainage structures can function properly in the parking and the required parking spaces can be utilized. The required number of parking spaces must be delineated by paint, sign, or other method as approved by the Laconia Planning Department. For post-construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy. Impact fees in the amount of $1.10 per newly constructed floor space must be paid to the planning department. In accordance with RSA 674-39, the applicant is exempt from any changes to impact fee rates for 5 years from the approval date. Should the project not be completed during the exemption period, the applicant must pay any and all increases to impact fees regardless of investment status. An as-built design application and review fee for the new addition must be submitted to the planning department for review and approval prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And for the completion date, the project and all associated conditions must be completed by no later than April 1st, 2030. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension application filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval will be null and void.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, any last questions for the staff? Look for a motion. Go ahead, Gail.
Move to approve application PB 2025-046 to 623 Union Avenue with the conditions as read into the minutes and including the waiver we previously approved.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Go ahead, Gary seconded it. Any last discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous. Thank you very much and good luck. Okay, so now we're going to go to 7.4.
She's at the end, she's at the end.
This is PB 2025-048 474 Layton Ave North. Applicant is proposing to reconstruct a single-family home within the wetland buffer. Look for an acceptance of this application.
So moved.
By Gary, seconded. Anybody gonna second this, please?
I don't think there's a waiver for this one.
Been seconded by Mike.
No, that's what he's here for.
I'll wait for, get everybody to know what we're doing here. All set. Okay, all in favor of the acceptance? Gail?
Oh,
Okay, so it was unanimous. They really are paying attention, so don't worry.
no, I am paying attention.
See,
so-
I'm just confirming that, Gail. You don't need to speak. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name's Doug LaRosa. I'm with Civil Works New England, representing the Kadishes in their proposed residence. Proposal is to construct a 4-bedroom house where there's an existing 2-bedroom home and a garage with a 2-bedroom ADU above. It's tax map 21, lot 25310. The lot is 1.25 acres. It has 515 feet along the shore. Proposal is to construct the home, driveway with some pervious pavers, and work within 75 feet of the shoreland. We're reusing the existing driveway off of Layton Ave North. Landscaping was planned along the entrance. This is the 2-bedroom ADU location. There will be some landscape pavers. We are proposing an area of pervious pavers. The house is located greater than 50 feet away from the reference line. There is a proposed landscape retaining wall shown parallel to the shore with a perch beach and 2 small sets of steps. There is going to be an on-site well and on-site septic. The septic system proposed is an AOS clean solution septic system, which requires, it's a small wastewater treatment plant that goes into a smaller dispersal field. We have revised that based on comments from NHDES Subsurface Systems Bureau. We originally proposed a 5-foot by 30-foot field. AOS had a old, NHDES only reviewed by a 1999 manual, which required a 175 square foot field instead of a 150 square foot field. So we've revised that. You don't have those revised plans. I have them here tonight. But it just went from 5 foot wide by 30 foot long to 7.5 feet wide by 20 feet long.
I admit, I didn't get out, a chance to get out and check this site out.
It's a very nice site. It's wooded. We're preserving the majority of the woodland per NHDES shoreline rules. We have to set aside 25% of the area between 50 foot back from the reference line to 150 foot back from the reference line. And we show that on our plan sheet 4.
Does Layton Ave have a sidewalk there?
No,
There's no sidewalk there. Okay.
no, there's a shoulder though.
This is at the end of the dead end, isn't it?
It's towards the end.
Not quite?
Okay.
It's not at the end,
It's not at the end? Okay.
but it's maybe,
It's close to where Collinsbrook Road comes in.
yeah.
Okay.
And how many houses on that road other than this?
On the entirety of Layton Avenue,
Layton Ave, yeah.
there's a lot of houses.
There's a lot of
20,
houses.
25 maybe?
There used to be a lot of camps, now there's a lot of homes.
Yeah.
And there's no sidewalk the whole stretch?
No,
Okay.
people walk in the street.
Yeah, there's not a lot
I
of
say
traffic.
that out loud,
Like
Gary.
they do in my
We don't
street.
wanna talk about that. What's, go ahead.
Could
could you point out where the wetlands buffer is being
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out where,
It's
That's, yeah,
disturbance
yeah,
within the shoreland protection
within the
district.
shoreline protection.
So when you disturb within the shoreline protection district,
Yep,
you need to come before you folks to get a conditional use permit.
okay.
So it's not, there is a wetlands that is along the shore.
But that's to the south of the house.
It's not 3,000 square feet. So there's a little tiny strip of wetlands
Right.
that we maintain 75 feet from with our septic system.
Mhm.
But our permit is requesting a conditional use permit to disturb area.
Within the shoreline protection zone.
Yes.
That's not what I read here on my notes. Thanks.
No, it's not what it says, and
Okay.
we discussed it briefly with planning.
So, there, it is within the 75-foot, there's a 75-foot wetland buffer for the shoreline that he's right there, which that's what he's requesting the CUP for. There's also a 300-foot wetland, a wetland on the property that's less than 3,000 square feet, but that is exempt from the wetland buffer because of its size.
Okay.
But there's a few delineated spots along the shoreline that he has identified as wetland. So that's probably here.
So this is the 75-foot setback
Right, okay.
from
Okay.
the reference line.
Yep.
There is no setback from
So
small.
they don't need any relief from SPOD because they're not actually building any structures within the SPOD. That if they would have had required to get a variance from the zoning board
I was
for the
wondering, yeah.
SPOD. But
is there a retaining wall there now?
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
sure.
you're
They're-
working with the state on that, with the,
they're proposing a vegetative retaining wall.
oh.
So it's not a
I thought when he
A
said retaining
landscape,
wall, I,
landscaped, I'm sorry.
Which is less than 3 feet 9, or 3 feet maximum.
and you want to add a beach where there is none?
So it's called a perch beach. So in the upland area, right here,
Yeah.
small 3,000 square feet, where you walk down. And currently it's,
Drops off.
it's just vegetated
I
there.
I had a relative that lived out there years ago. I kind of know what's out there.
It's basically
swampland.
just, you
Yeah.
know, bushes 2 or 3 feet high.
Yeah, there's not much out there.
No, nothing, except for stones and scrub.
I guess it's not, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. We're going to open this up to public comment at 7:38. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this application? Again. All right, well, seeing nobody, we'll close the public comment at 7:39. Okay, staff, do you have any questions for the staff before he gets in that?
I do, can you reiterate again what it is exactly we're voting to do?
So, the plan that,
For being so dense. but-
no. So the plan that they had provided identified some wetlands along the shoreline. We do have an SPOD district that regulates what can be built within, I believe it's 50 feet of the shoreline. They're
Right.
not proposing to build anything within the 50 feet. However, because their plan identified wetlands along the shoreline, they're within their 75-foot buffer because our ordinance requires a 75-foot buffer for wetlands contiguous to the lake.
Public bodies of water.
Yeah, to public bodies of water. So because of that, they have to go 75 feet out from that shoreline where they've identified the wetlands. So for that reason, they're building within the 75-foot buffer, but they're not building within that 50-foot protection that we have for the SPOD. I know, it's
So that's why no variance was
Correct.
needed? Okay.
correct.
All right.
Yep.
And did this go in front of the Conservation Commission?
It did, and I was going to point out too, I had mistakenly left that off.
Plans, or-
They did, and we have incorporated those within our conditions of approval. And I did leave that off on the findings of fact, so I apologize, but I will add that in there now that this did go before the Conservation Commission at their March 5th meeting, and their comments have been incorporated into the recommended conditions of approval. So with that, I'll roll into findings of fact. So the application and subdivision plans are complete and consistent with state and city land use regulations. The application and site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its March 18th, 2025 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated into the recommended conditions of approval. And as I mentioned before, the same thing with the Conservation Commission at their March 5th meeting. For the recommended conditions of approval, for pre-construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be completed at least 2 weeks prior to commencing any work on site. Plans must be revised and submitted to the planning department to include the following: the required wetland buffer for each non-exempt wetland. Erosion controls must be in place and inspected and approved by the planning department in all areas with a single line of erosion controls. Silt socks must be used instead of silt fence. In all areas with a double line of erosion controls, a combination of silt sock and silt fence must be used. The planning department will perform regular inspections to ensure erosion controls are installed and maintained correctly. The applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by federal, state, municipal boards, or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of the final plans. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the planning department. 4 final plan sets must be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the planning department. For construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met during the construction of the project. The applicant must adhere to all specifications as required by the Laconia Fire Department. For post-construction requirements, all conditions in this section must be met prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy. An as-built design, application, and review fee for the dwelling unit must be submitted to the planning department for review and approval prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. And for the completion date, the project and all associated conditions must be completed no later than April 1st, 2030. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension applications filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval will be null and void.
Thank you, Tyler. I was trying to see if you slow down by the end of the night, but you
I
don't.
try not to breathe. One
I was
breath and
wondering
I'm good.
If you could ever get through one without breathing. Mr. Chair, I do have one question. When he presented this, it says summary of application and background. Was there an ADU here that was included above a garage?
Yes, so their ADU will be, at the time of building permit, they need to submit an administrative review application
Okay,
to get their ADU permitted.
okay, but that's not in what we're approving?
No,
Okay, and is there any conditions in that application that it stays as an ADU, or do they allow it to short-term rental, or
so
what?
we specifically wrote into our ADU ordinance that you were prohibited from using any of those structures on the lot as short-term lodging.
Okay,
So noted,
so
okay.
noted, thank you.
Anything else from anybody? I'll look for a motion.
I move
Yep.
to approve application PB 2025-048 for 474 Layton Ave with the conditions of approval presented in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, any last questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Opposed? No, there's not. It was unanimous, right across the board. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you for your service.
No. No. This is something we do for self-abuse. Some of us have issues.
I'm getting paid? I thought this was fun.
Gary, I don't know, Gary, is this your first meeting?
Supposed to drink before you come in.
I know. Is this your first meeting, or were you here last month?
That's ours.
If you
this is my
blow
first
below a
appearance.
This is your
.08,
first
you
appearance.
can't be in a planning board.
So, for members watching this on YouTube or wherever, Gary, announce who you are for everybody. All right. Gary Diane, I'm like pleasantly surprised to see you here.
After my 15-year sabbatical, I'm back.
Yeah, after 15
First
years.
moved here, he was chair of the planning.
I'd like to say that I'm thrilled that Gary's here, and
Thrilled.
he's one of the folks who has contributed to the city consistently over the years, and thank you, Gary, for coming back.
Thank you.
I mean that.
I likewise echo that. I'm sure everybody does, but you poor soul. We'll talk later.
I haven't learned.
I know. Okay.
Wait till you find out the committee assignments we're gonna give you.
I think he's already signed up for those. Okay, so we're gonna move to, any presentations tonight? The room is empty except the press. Okay, so Planning Department, monthly report. Anything?
So, sorry. DTA, our contractor who's doing our impact analysis, came in on the 25th of this month. We went to every department in the city. We interviewed every department head we reviewed facilities or we toured facilities, and we looked at everybody's capital improvement programs and any policies that they have in place in regard to how they operate and costs associated with that, and what their revenues are and expenses, so that they could move forward with our impact fee study, which we hope to have the next few months, I think. 3 months. We got a lot of data sent to them, so they have a lot of data analysis to do now. They finished all the interviews with all the staff. I think they want to have one more meeting via Zoom with the SAU, just to finalize some questions that they have. But it's moving along really well. We had a meeting on the 27th with the Government Operations and Ordinance Subcommittee. It was brought to them that they would like to review having a chicken ordinance. In our discussion, they had some proposed changes to an ordinance that the city had developed, I believe it was either 2013 or 2016, by the zoning task force. So they had some amendments to that. So I'm going to incorporate those amendments into that ordinance, and then we'll have it for public hearing for next month. City Council or that subcommittee wanted the planning board to have a public hearing on it to get input from the public on what their view was on chickens. And then, so depending on the outcome of that meeting, we'll send it back to that subcommittee meeting with any input that we have. They'll review any input the planning board has and public input.
At this board.
Next meeting, at this next planning board meeting.
Okay.
So that way they have a better picture of what the planning board thinks and what the public thinks.
What
and
the public thinks, yeah.
if there's an appetite for pursuing chickens.
Okay.
Could I interject, because I was part of the ordinance and whatever it is, committee discussion. The present our proposal is for half acre or more or less. No, half acre or more.
I'd have to look at it.
You must have a half acre or more. There was some discussion in the committee about cutting that to a quarter acre. I think at least 2 members of the committee are not inclined that way.
How many members on the committee?
3.
Okay.
There was discussion about how many chickens. I think at the moment we're at 5. There was some discussion about the coop that they had to have and the run area they had to have. I added that the coop, the run area not only had to be fenced in, but had to be covered over.
Covered over so they couldn't fly
So
out?
they can't, yes.
Or attack from above?
Either one.
Both.
Yeah. I have 10-foot walls and they get out. Got out. They can't anymore. but, I'd have to tell you, there wasn't, I think 2 members of that committee were not warm and fuzzy about this, 2 of the 3.
That's fine. I mean, it's a suggestion from the committee, right?
Yeah.
And we go from there, so that's fine. I think it's a good idea, because certainly, there's a lot of interest in that from nationwide about people from.
Go buy eggs and see if you don't begin to have some interest.
Yeah, no, I totally, I was on 11 today going towards the airport, and past Walmart's entrance there to the right, there was a flock of, I think, 12 chickens, and they were kind of cool-looking birds. They were all dark, really dark chickens. And they were right alongside the road, pecking away, and I thought, is this Laconia? Oh, it's Guilford. Ready to make the call. But they're, chickens are pretty good about keeping out of the road, because I.
The live chickens are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dead chickens
Wind
have a
aggressive. I
problem.
keep watching the clock, so, okay. Thank you, Counselor.
How about cutting down to 3 chickens if you have a quarter acre? Because most residential lots are not a half acre.
I think, and one of the other things that I meant to mention was what we looked at allowed chickens in the backyard or the side yards. And I think there's no interest in the side yards, because.
Next to the house.
Yeah, because you'd be so close to neighbors. And I think, less chickens on a smaller lot probably has as much support as 5 chickens on a half acre at the moment. I mean, I probably, as a.
Is this like getting 10 nuggets for $5 or something?
Yeah. As the owner of chickens, I can tell you that there is no way to guarantee they won't get out. I don't care what you do.
Oh, just like a dog.
They dig.
Yeah.
They're like
You know,
Houdinis.
Yeah. So in a residential neighborhood, to have chickens run around digging up your garden, for instance,
Yeah, but they're getting the bugs out of it.
they also get the seeds out. It's no longer a garden.
Well, I've given
I
up
speak
worrying
with
about
knowledge.
what's running around in my yard because I don't have chickens, but I got coyotes.
Yeah, well, who will get the chickens
And the
along with the
chickens
fox?
will,
That's okay. I don't need chickens. My point is, Gail,
All-
I don't need the chickens to get coyotes. I already got them.
Right.
And there's a bobcat that's been floating around up on Pleasant Street. So with or without chickens, we've already got all this stuff happening.
but
Good
chickens
bobcat's
will
good
add
for
to
3
the
chicken
number.
night, anyway.
I'm sorry?
I said a good bobcat's good for 3 or 4 chickens a night.
Again, my point is, we've already got all this wildlife that people are worried about attracting with chickens. That's already here.
I agree. I agree. I'm just
you know,
teasing you.
Again, I can
bear
speak from
that's
experience.
surrounding our neighborhood.
Getting chickens
like chickens that
increases
much.
the number
They
of
like the feeders.
They do like
predators
to feed,
who
yeah.
visit your property.
then you have the two-legged predators.
Yeah.
Is there anything else for that?
I like chicken extra crispy.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, with that real good
there
batter
any-
stuff on it.
Anyways, so I'll continue on. So we have our site plan and subdivision regulations out to bid right now. Deadline for submissions is April 4th. This month we had 4 short-term lodging applications and 3 administrative review applications. We had our first minor site plan application of the year. That was for 1072 Watson Road for a 14 by 34 renovation, which added 480 square feet to their building. We did a site walk with the downtown TIF. We're working on bid documents for a landscaping project downtown. We expect to have that bid out in the next week or so. The planning department requested $100,000 in its budget this year for a master plan. We had a lot of applications go before our zoning board this last month. Only one of them was approved, and that was for Blueberry Lane. Everything else was either denied or withdrawn. That about sums up what I've got.
Mr. Chair, I have one quick question for
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
planning department, and it goes to the short-term lodging thing that we discussed earlier, but really doesn't have anything to do with the ordinance. About 2, maybe 3 years ago, the city council, I remember Henry Littman was on the city council because it was his motion. He made a motion to appropriate, whether it got authorized and moved into your budget, $20,000 to the planning department for oversight and monitoring of short-term rentals. And I was just wondering, what happened to that chunk of money? Did it disappear? Is it still being held aside? Is there any plans within your department to start trying to better monitor what's going on? Are we gonna subcontract it? I know all those things came out, $20,000 ended up being a number, and I'm just trying to track down what happened to that number as we move forward with potentially new
The
ordinance.
nice vest they have on.
We had to buy these out of our own pocket, actually.
10,000
That
each.
wasn't in the city budget.
Nope.
So I will reflect on that. You're right. Several years ago, it was brought up during city council. I think it might have been even during budget season. They asked about the ability to enforce
It was.
short-term lodging, and they asked. It was the prior planning director at the time. The feasibility of having that done. I believe there was a number back then of about $20,000 it would cost for them to have a third. But the third, it was reviewed. And it came back that it was kind of too expensive for our budget versus how many applications we were getting in. It wasn't cost effective. We have since, was that at? I can't remember what. Oh, it was that when we did short-term lodging. So before it came to planning board tonight, it had been at the Government and Ordinances Subcommittee
Yes.
as well. And even at that subcommittee, it might have been about
About like August, I feel
August,
like?
maybe before that, at one of the meetings, that was also discussed. And they asked the feasibility of us doing that. So Tyler and I, we did reach out to several vendors, and that cost had kind of gone up to a little bit over $30,000.
And that's an annual cost, or for the
Yes,
software
that's
that
an-
you guys would
That's
monitor?
an annual cost, and it doesn't provide enforcement action.
Correct.
Which is the biggest aspect of what I think the city was looking to achieve with having a contractor, was have somebody doing the enforcement action. All they would do for that $30,000 a year is use big data to identify properties in the city that were on multiple, or on any website listed out as short-term lodging.
Okay.
And so then it came back to the staff that you still had to do the violation letters, manage all the permits, send things over to zoning board. So what you're getting for $30,000 is.
Oh, I'm not arguing, yeah, I'm just wondering.
It's just really not worth what, you're still putting in the same labor hours, if not more, to manage that. All you're getting is, you could send more letters out.
Okay, now, Mike, so that brings me to, like, the next question. Is there something within the planning department as you prepare, you know, because it's already budget season, I don't have to tell you that. Is there something in the works for enforcement of our short-term rental ordinances? I just hate to see us go through all of this to recreate an ordinance that we do not have the ability to enforce or monitor.
I will point out that in the ordinance rewrite that we did, we tried to add in there that auditing process to give us a better ability to manage who was following the rules and who's not following the rules.
Right.
I will agree, I think it was brought up in Councilor Hoffman's letter that was reading from one of the zoning board members. All laws unfortunately do is keep honest people honest.
I'm aware.
If somebody lies on a report and submits it to us, I have no way of going out to validate that, and at what point do you gotta take people at their word.
Well, the neighbors will be the eyes.
Bingo.
But I think having that is something, which is better than nothing.
Oh, I'm not arguing for or against the ordinance. That wasn't my argument. My argument was an enforcement component that has been loosely bantered around for the last 4 or 5 years, to be honest with you, but yet nothing,
I
we
think,
talked about it a lot, but nothing has gone forward with
I
that.
think more importantly, the planning department's budget, it's very difficult to, I try very hard to maintain that we are tax cap compliant. And in my budget this year, I was only authorized to increase my budget 1.99%. I only have a $50,000 budget.
I was gonna say, where are you gonna spend that $11?
So my increase was already eaten up by Lakes Region Planning Commission. Their due increase was over $1,000. So, and then I have to print a lot of paper each month for.
I know.
So my copier fee's gone up, my postage fees have gone up. So after all said and done, I'm net negative.
No, I understand that. So I mean, I think you understand the question, you understand where I'm coming from, about how many how many on the books legit short-term rental properties do we
Actually,
have?
I will
the
say,
city right
there
now?
was a fantastic article in the Daily Sun
Yeah, I remember
the other
Gabe
day.
did that article.
I think I've
I
seen
don't
the
remember his
reporter
number, though.
before. He might be in the audience, I don't know. But he had a really good article, and I gave him all the data. And like I said before, I have all of that data available to anybody that wants to come in. We have it in an Excel sheet. I'm more than willing to give it. It has every zoning district that they're in, their address, everything.
Do you have a sense of what percentage of the actual short-term rentals that represents the legit ones?
I think the majority of the rentals, I can't recall everything off the top of my head. That's why I've got Excel.
Right.
But for the most part, it's functioning the way it was intended to function.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're happy with it.
Most
then-
everything is in the CR or SFR area. There are things in the RS in other areas. But I think for the most part, the short-term lodging ordinance, whether people like it or dislike it, it's functioning the way it was designed. Do I think there's room for improvement in it? Absolutely, just like anything else. On the flip side of that is we often have times where people need to go to zoning board for a special exception for short-term lodging. And a lot of the butters come out and they're very concerned with it.
Yep.
Rightly so. I mean, I agree. I'd be a little concerned in my backyard if somebody was short-term lodging. But more often than not, if the zoning board approves it, we never hear complaints about it. That doesn't say that there's not issues there.
Complaints would usually go to the police department.
Some
for
complaints go
noise
to the police
complaints and
department.
parking and stuff
And
like
some
that.
complaints go to DPW and some complaints come to planning. And everybody gets an abutter notice saying, hey, your neighbor's doing short-term lodging.
Well, I think the counselor here can attest to some complaints he's had. So people are complaining.
And I
it's just
agree,
whether it
and I
gets
just
to you
think
or not.
that we need to probably be more informative to the residents about if you have an issue with a property, there's a proper channel that they need to take so that we can document everything, so that if we need to revoke or send a violation letter out, we've got the proper documentation and a history of it to take action that we need to take.
Do you have a link to that on that procedure on your website?
I believe it is on the city's
Okay,
website.
so if someone were to have a problem, and, we could, as members of the planning board or city council or
Yeah,
direct them,
I
say
believe
there
it.
is a.
I believe it's on there, but I will double check and I can.
Let me jump in. First of all, the problem is, there are a number of us who go to the website and get lost in,
Yeah, well, I
point
agree.
here and go there and whatever. So I think some public statement about this. If I can interject, you and I have agreed to meet. In fact, I said sometime this week. I apologize for not having followed through on that. But I think you should feel comfortable talking to me about your budget and what additional, if any, needs you have. I think that's my obligation sitting here, is to help you and help this board if there are things that need to be done. So take a day or so and think about it, and I'll try and give you a call and set something up so we can talk budget on top of everything else. 1.9% seems a little off to me. And in fairness, I understand the manager is trying to do his due diligence, but, let's talk.
Well, I think we were gonna actually put in our budget to double all y'all's salary.
Oh.
So,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you can double mine
Yeah.
anytime, yeah.
But absolutely, I would love to. I have.
I'll be in.
I would love to discuss my strategic plan for the planning department
Okay.
and for the city.
Yep.
But
I do think Bruce has a good point on, maybe we need some more public expression of if somebody has a problem with a short-term rental in their neighborhood, because I'm guilty of that. I know both the owners, and I just call them up and tear into them, and it usually resolves the problem, but thinking back, you should probably be documenting that, because that should be
absolutely.
kept, and that slips through the cracks. Something I think should maybe be done.
So I will. I have. I've got about 1,000 irons in the fire. I'm not gonna lie. But I have this great admin that works for me, and I've been telling her that I think we need to enhance our presence online. So she is working on right now for me a Facebook page for the planning department, so we can get information out easier to people, because I think that is sometimes our biggest limiting factor is our public.
people just don't know.
People just don't know.
Well,
Absolutely.
and there's also the Laconian links.
There is.
That you could put something in that I don't say that everybody reads it. I'm just trying to think of, thinking out loud here.
Because usually, yeah, we
The
usually
documentation piece is important, and I'll give you a quick example. When I sat on the zoning board, we had a lot of controversial short-term rentals come in front of the zoning board. And as Mike knows, as you know, since you've taken over as planner, a lot of these were pre-you, but that's okay. One of them, we had a lot of neighborhood testimony against it, all of them complaining that police had been called on this particular property multiple times. Well, they hadn't. That documentation piece did not exist. Laconia Police Department documents everything. Anything that goes through that switchboard gets a thing, okay? That's just the way they do business, that's how they justify their budget. And there were no complaints. And I went back 5, 6 years, just to make sure that, so whatever the complaint process is. So what I'm trying to get at is if there's a way that the planning department, with the help of the city council and maybe Laconia Links, can facilitate a complaint procedure so that it's documented, that it's not just a neighbor saying this and that we can't support that, because we start sending complaint letters out, as you know, the courts want to know, were the police called to this property? And the answer is yes or no. It's not
Absolutely. And
ambiguous.
so we actually, we have a complaint box specifically for short-term lodging on the city's website.
Really?
We
Okay.
do. And you can upload pictures and you can track times and everything.
You know, I got a friend who sent me a text message and told me to look at something online. And I sent back and said, I don't know how to get there. He suggested I try to find some 13-year-old in the neighborhood to walk me through it. And that's funny, but it's also true. There's a lot of people
That's right.
like me who, yeah, and Charlie has no clue. Seriously.
He set his email up about 3 years ago, so we're good.
Seriously though, I would also suggest to you that every radio station in the world is looking for public service announcements. Maybe once or twice a year you could try to get some of the local stations. I'd go to the Daily Sun and ask them for, a public service announcement from time to time to take care of folks like me who want. The other, I'll give, it took me probably 3 months to figure out where to find the schedule for garbage collection. Go on the city's website and try and find it.
I 100%, not to go off.
Don't put that in the paper. I don't want people to know how
He said
ignorant I
it, it's in
am.
the paper.
Not,
Put it
not,
in.
not to go off on a tangent, but we were at a downtown TIF meeting, I think it was last month, and we were talking about the city's website. Yeah. And there are, and the city knows, we have a lot of issues with our website. And the unfortunate aspect of the city website is it's on the individual departments of when they update items that are on their site. And it just is, then you're bound by the tech savviness of whoever job it is to update.
Yep.
And it's,
I believe me, I understand every word of that, and, I have said, I think the tech folks need to look at our website and make it easier to navigate, because you either need to be a rocket scientist or lucky.
Or 13.
Or
Or
13.
13.
Because a point in case today, I know we probably wasted an hour and a half between 3 staff members on a file that wouldn't open on an agenda, which then required us to remove items, put it back in, find out why it wasn't working, delete it, rename it, put it back in there, just to finally get this file to open for an abutter who was like, hey, it's just not opening for me. So I totally get that. And
Well, anyway, Mr. Chair, just to bring this back around, I just think as we go forward, and my only point in saying this is without enforcement, we could pass all the short-term rental ordinances in the world we want. If we don't have some measure of enforcement, then I'm not saying I'd vote for it or against it. I'm just saying that it has to be part of that conversation. At this level, at city council level, at the city manager level, at whatever level you think it needs to go to.
Well, it won't be, unfortunately, from this board, it'll be from the city council
Right.
or.
Well, it's gonna cost
legal
money, and they're the ones
So
that have gotta spend it.
I'll also just bring that in. So the city staff, working with the city manager, we've had some internal discussions, and we're it's on me right now to schedule the next meeting, and we're discussing our internal hierarchy and how and where some of these inspections and enforcements fall to better capture everything that's going on. So that's an internal process right now that the city manager and the code director, Public Works, the fire department, and the planning department, we're all working on right now to find a better way of enforcement and inspections that are ongoing in the entire city for all of our ordinances. So we're absolutely working on that. It's a huge undertaking.
Oh, I agree.
I am sure, we're looking at, what's the most efficient message, way to move everything forward. So
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Unless you're done.
We're just about done, I think. Are you?
I'm done.
That was all I had to
Just
say. I
answer
just
questions.
wanted to wrap that up.
All right, we'll go through this really quick. The last things we have here are any reports we have from, we have nothing from city council, I take it?
I've had all
All right, and we have nothing
take.
from
All you can take.
yeah.
Region planning?
liaison reports. Where am I? Right here.
Yeah.
Okay, Lakes Region Planning Commission,
Their meeting is next Monday, and
Okay.
Rich and I will be there.
all right. Conservation Commission,
They're working on updating some of their checklists for wetland CUPs. So we should be seeing that coming before the board in the next few months.
okay, and Historical District Commission is still waiting for a top secret meeting.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's not really top secret.
I know it's not, I'm just being sarcastic. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn?
Second? All in favor, raise your hands, okay. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next month, and hold on to that paperwork for that
Yep.